She came into the room and she immediately scared me because she came in with a certain aura and dressed, of course, marvelously, but she had that kind of aura that made you think, ooh.
This sound came out of this little woman, which was extraordinary. I never heard anything like it. And I said, yes, she is a diva.
I don't think it would be out of place to say that she's a kind of Canadian Maria Callas, as a personality and also as a singer.
I was 5, 6 years old, and they will say, what are you going to do when you're a big girl? I say, I'm going to be a prima donna on the stage.
The word diva. It brings to mind images of spoiled and temperamental celebrities, more famous for being famous than for being talented. In the world of opera, the word is used in reverence for someone whose virtuosity and dedication have lifted them to the pinnacle of their art. A diva is glamorous, rich, pampered, not someone you would see browsing a street market for fresh produce. But Maria Pellegrini is a well-known figure on Ottawa's Wellington Street. She is at home here. And yet, a certain continental flair suggests she comes from another place, or indeed, another time.
Grazie.
Con piacere, grazie. È buono?
The best. I'm very strict myself. Yeah. Even today, I have my discipline. I don't like to go to bed too late. I don't drink, and I don't eat dairy products because that will affect my voice. You know, it's everything for the to be in shape. You know, I don't want to be fat woman, so it's, you know, it's something that you want or you don't want it. But singing for me is like a religion. I will never lose my religion, so I will never lose my voice because it's better than ever, perfect.
The life of an opera singer is not for the weak of heart. It calls for a total dedication to the art form, because your next performance is always just a phone call away.
Okay. Can you come?
When the call comes, Maria must be ready to fly halfway around the globe, sometimes with just a few days' notice. Physically and mentally, she must be fully prepared for the rigors of the opera stage. In between performances, Maria must keep her voice in shape and earn a living. Teaching allows her to do both.
Here, tutto quel bene. It's because it's called canto. The conductor we're going to stretch that so you can have a beautiful big nose. Try that for me.
Sure.
Tutto, Elisabetta. Page 19, down on the bottom.
Today, Maria's student roster is full. It's not often you find a vocal instructor who has shared the stage with Luciano Pavarotti and sung before the Queen of England. For Maria, teaching is not a part-time job. It is a passion that comes naturally.
My little girlfriends from school, they wanted to play, they want to do skipping ropes, you know, other games. I say, no, let's do the theater. I say, I sing opera and I'll teach you how to sing an aria. So I did the theater, you know, and I would put chairs and I make tickets so everybody would pay, and the neighbors, they would come and they would listen, and I would sing, Mamma son tanto felice. I would sing all the tenors arias.
Time stands still in the medieval town of Pretoro, Italy. Everybody knows each other. Tradition and respectability are permanent residents. This is the ancestral home of Vincenzo Pellegrini, his wife Giuseppina, and their 4 children. While no one in the Pellegrini family had shown any musical inclination, the voices of Maria Callas and Mario Lanza call out to the young Maria on the family radio, beckoning her to a place grand and wonderful. Maria discovered the power and dynamics of her voice in the mountains, where she helped her grandfather tend sheep.
I would burst some high notes, you know, because it was in the valley, and I would wait for the echo coming back. Yeah, they said, well, sing something. I say, I don't sing if you don't pay me. So I say, I was always a professional. They had to give me some money before I sang.
While her family found Maria's childhood talent shows entertaining, the idea of their daughter becoming a professional singer had never crossed their minds. But the pint-sized Diva Maria already knew what she wanted, and she was not afraid to fight for it.
Actually, they didn't want me to sing. My body wanted me just to get married and have lots of children. And, you know, they didn't want me to. I said to my father, if you don't let me be a singer, I'll kill myself. I have to be a singer.
The theatrics worked. Her father enrolled Maria in piano and singing lessons. By the age of 15, while most teenagers were listening to rock and roll, her career was about to blossom. She made her first record with a small Italian label and her stage debut performing Rossini and Puccini.
That was the opening of the City Hall in Pescara, and I sang in front of 6,000 people, you know, yeah, with a microphone. And I actually remember what I sang. I sang Una voce poco fa e Quando m'envo. I even remember the 2 arias.
But In 1959, the budding opera star was plucked from the precipice of fame in Italy. Her father had other plans, plans for a whole new life. In 1959, the Pellegrini family started their new life in Ottawa, Canada. They already had family there, but this was little comfort for Maria.
It was tough because we came in the middle of the winter in December and was not easy because when we arrived to Montreal, it was maybe 30 below, 20 below, and we didn't have the equipment for that kind of weather. It was scary. And the train to Ottawa from Montreal, it took forever and had no heat. That was horrible. Yeah, so we were all crying. My mother was crying and saying, oh my God, what are we going to do?
Life in Canada was very different. In Pescara, Maria was a rising star. In Ottawa, she was brought back down to earth, living the life of a regular teenager, attending an English-speaking high school, and working part-time at a beauty salon.
I wanted to make some money, and I want to learn the English, and I went and work on this beauty salon. I would help do shampoo and clean the floor, things like that.
Ironically, it was in this unlikely setting that destiny found Maria. The young Maria loved to sing while she worked, to the delight of the well-heeled clientele. Her vocal talents caught the attention of Nora Michener, wife of the future Governor-General of Canada. She invited Maria to sing at a reception on Parliament Hill, an event that would change the course of Maria's life.
I think she loved the voice, and she said, Maria, can you come in my chamber? I want to speak to you. She said, can you sing again for me? I said, well, like this, no piano. She said, yes, just I want to hear your voice. So I sang, and she started crying. I said, oh my God, don't cry, are you okay? She said, oh, your voice is so beautiful. I want to help you to get a big scholarship to go and study. You have to sing.
I received a phone call from Mrs. Michener in Ottawa, saying, I'd like you, Roy, to speak to your voice teacher, Ernesto Vinci, Dr. Vinci, and ask him if Maria could come and audition for a scholarship because she has a wonderful voice. So at my next lesson, I spoke to Dr. Vinci about this, and his answer was very interesting. He said, well, if Mrs. Michener says that Maria has a great voice, I don't need to audition her. I'll get her the scholarship.
2 weeks after her performance for Mrs. Michener, Maria had a visitor at the salon.
Maria, it's for you. There's a man at the door. A man? I say, oh my God. Maybe it's a policeman. Maybe he want to put me in jail. I didn't know who was this man. And he was this beautiful man with a big scholarship from Canada Council. And that's when I went to Toronto to study, really serious.
Her father had other plans.
Actually, they didn't want me to sing. My mother wanted me just to get married and have lots of children,
Like many of the opera heroines she would one day portray, Maria would have to defy her father to realize her dreams. She enrolled at the University of Toronto's Conservatory of Music in 1962. And much to her father's relief, she boarded at a convent. Maria initially struggled. She had difficulty with phrasing and diction in English. But with practice and determination, she succeeded. Her exceptional voice and natural charm made an immediate impact.
She was a very, very ambitious, receptive student. She was just obviously born to be an opera singer. It was there, written all over her.
The other young singers around Maria, I'm sure, were envious of her natural talent and did not make things easy for her. And I'm sure that she had to struggle and had to show a great strength of personality, which might not have pleased everybody. But I think it pleased Dr. Vinci.
Jealousy and the language barrier did nothing to deter Maria from pursuing her art, and she received impeccable training from the highly respected Dr. Ernesto Vinci and Maestro Ernesto Barbini.
Her association with Dr. Vinci was very important. He guided her vocally,
in the ways that she should go, although she didn't need much vocal guidance, but he kept a stern and benevolent eye on her. Then, without question, Maestro Barbini, who knew voice, he was a conductor and coach of vast experience. He knew what gold was in his hands, and he moved in the right direction.
Barbini was a tough and demanding taskmaster.
Guinea, he was very tough conductor, very tough coach. You know, one day he said to me, "You will never sing, you will never sing. You go home and make babies." I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." I say, "I will sing and you will be conducting." And that's what happened.
True to her word, the 22-year-old Maria made her professional debut in 1966 under Barbini's direction at Toronto's O'Keeffe Centre. She played the High Priestess in the Canadian Opera Company production of Aida. A year and a half later, she landed the lead role of Gilda in Verdi's Rigoletto, alongside the world-famous Welsh baritone Peter Glossop.
It was interesting, Dr. Vinci's reaction. He said, it's most unusual for a young singer to start off with such a demanding role as Gilda, and she was wonderful.
Maria also had quite an effect on a fellow music student, Joseph Mako, a young man who Maria felt could provide her with a certain degree of respectability in her family's eyes.
I think he took a great sympathy more in my voice than in me personally, and you know, he maybe saw the money maker, you know. And I married him because I want to go to England. You know, it was not good for me to go by myself. You know, my mother said, "Oh, you can go by yourself." So I came back to Ottawa. We got married. We moved back to Toronto, and we had a little apartment there. And I lived the most horrible married life for a while, and then went to England. You know.
In 1970, after a failed audition at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, Maria was invited to audition for Sir George Solti at Covent Garden in London. After 20 minutes, she was offered a 3-year contract. She was the first non-British, non-Commonwealth performer ever to be hired by Covent Garden in a principal role. In her debut, she performed before Queen Elizabeth as Gilda in Rigoletto, opposite a young Luciano Pavarotti. Lord Harwood of the Times of London wrote, her performance matched Pavarotti's like cream to coffee.
So we got along fantastic. He would squeeze my hand when I was supposed to cut for the higher note. I said, "Luciano, you squeeze my hand, then I know when to cut."
After sharing the stage with Pavarotti, Maria shook the opera world with a stunning performance as Cho-Cho-san in Puccini's Madame Butterfly, a role that would become Maria's signature.
So my first Butterfly at Sarah's Wells was in English, and it sounded like Italian. Yeah, so that was a challenge to learn a big school like that in English, because my English was not very good.
The preparation for a principal opera role often takes months.
First of all, it's 400 pages by memory, but you don't learn only your part. You learn the other people's part, the chorus part, to know when you're going to sing. And then you do the staging, you have to learn all the position, the timing, when you walk, when you go, when you enter, you go out, and everything is timing, everything into the music. And then you have to follow conductor, so it's a busy, you know. The day of the performance, naturally, you don't sing too much. You rest, you vocalize before the show, and you try to keep as fresh as you can, because so you have the energy for. Because the show starts at 8 o'clock and you finish like 10:30, 11 o'clock, so you have to be awake.
Focus and the ability to think on your feet are critical on the opera stage. With a small army of performers, musicians, technicians, and stagehands, coordination and execution are paramount. But sometimes all the planning in the world is not enough, especially when working with children.
There were usually 5 or 6, maybe small, but there were 5 or 6 a bit more advanced. And even with them, sometimes we had a problem. You know, suddenly in the middle of performance, they say, "I want to go to the bathroom." Things like that. Oh, my mommy bought me a new bike. No. Yeah.
A sense of humor goes a long way in the somewhat serious world of opera, and sometimes a well-placed prank can help to relieve tension.
I remember a dress rehearsal of Bohème that we were doing at the National Arts Center that Diana Soviero was doing Mimi and Maria was doing Musetta. And you know, the wonderful scene at the end where Mimi has to put her hands into this fur muff, and Maria had put a wiener inside it. So Diana put her hands inside, and of course there's this cold wiener inside that.
During her years in Britain, Maria was consistently greeted by adoring crowds and rave reviews. She had by all means arrived. Sadly, the success she enjoyed in her professional life was not mirrored in her personal life.
I was married with the wrong person, so I was tough about that. You know, he was a violent person. He was very unkind, and it was tough for me to stand being 100%. My mother and father didn't approve that I would go alone and live in England, so I would sacrifice anything for the singing, and I married him so I could go to England.
After 8 years, Maria ended her first marriage. During these tough times, Maria never let her problems at home affect her performances on stage. She felt the need to broaden her horizons. The Paris Opera and many Italian companies were inviting her to perform with them, but her contract with Covent Garden was binding. Welsh baritone Peter Glossop sensed Maria's desire to spread her wings. He introduced her to his agent, Gabriele Daviero. Maria wanted a change, and Daviero could provide it. After 8 years as a principal soprano at Covent Garden, Maria Pellegrini made her exit. Daviero booked Maria concert dates in her native Italy, where she was an instant success. He propelled Maria onto the international stage, including a triumphant return to the Canadian Opera Company in Toronto.
One of her great roles was Gilda, and another at the other end of the spectrum is Aida. It's not very often that one finds an artist who can sing those two roles. Gilda is a fairly light soprano, where she's not a light soprano. She brought warmth and weight and seriousness to the role, which is excellent, and yet she could go all the way to a huge dramatic role like Aida herself.
A member of the Canadian Opera Company was equally mesmerized by the beautiful and newly divorced Maria.
Well, I thought she was way out of sight. I mean, for me, I'm a guy of the theater. I'm pragmatic. This was a whole new dimension for me to meet somebody that was, quote, a star. And when I realized just how personable and great she was as far as being ordinary was concerned. I mean, she didn't put herself on that pedestal. It was others that put her up there. And so she was very accessible that way. And as I say, one thing led to another, and we ended up together. It was great.
Stephen Thomas and Maria Pellegrini married a year after they met and moved to Rome. This was a very happy time in Maria's life. She was close once again to her family, who had moved back to Italy, and discerning Italian audiences adored her. Maria was living her dream.
Proprio quando facevamo il duetto di Butterfly in Palermo, era la luna nel mese di luglio-agosto. La luna proprio era, si vedeva al mare dove si cantava, e la luna sembrava di toccarla con la mano, proprio era così vicino. Maria era nel famoso duetto Bimba dagli occhi pieni di Malia, era tesa, era come... Ho detto in una pausa: Maria, guarda, nella tua vita, nella tua carriera, un momento così intenso con la luna che ti cade nelle mani non l'avrai mai. E questo anche Maria credo se lo ricorderà, è stata un'emozione unica.
She won acclaim from Parma to Palermo and was awarded the Primo Soprano d'Italia. La Scala, one of the world's most revered opera houses, approached Maria with an invitation to play the role of Violetta in La Traviata. It was a dream role, but sadly, one that Maria would not be able to accept. Maria was torn. She wanted to do what was best for her career, and yet she loved her husband and was looking forward to motherhood. She had to turn down the lead in La Traviata at La Scala. She would be 8 months pregnant by opening night, hardly appropriate for the part of the teenaged Violetta. Meanwhile, at home, Maria was facing a more difficult decision. Stephen wanted to move back to Canada to raise their child and get his career back on track.
Maria was on the way to be one of the greatest soprano in the world. But because she was here with her husband and she got pregnant, and she decided to cancel all the engagements she had in Italy and throughout Italy to go back to Canada.
I don't think DeVario was too happy with her. He figured that he could really make things happen over there. The problem was that they weren't happening quickly enough, and I couldn't cope with it. He wasn't interested in trying to find work for me, and pounding the streets again. It wasn't going to work. So, in that sense, it just made more sense for us to come back.
I followed my heart instead of my brain. I come back to Canada.
It was not long before Maria wowed Canadian audiences once again, determined to perform despite being 8 months pregnant. Maria gave birth to Vincent Thomas in July 1974. She adapted to her new role easily and with passion, but didn't put her career on hold. While her husband worked as artistic director for their newly founded Opera Hamilton, Maria toured North America and Europe, Vincent and Nanny in tow.
Because she didn't have the sort of the huge diva ego that she could have had, she didn't have any problem taking the nanny, taking Vince with her in his early years on the road with her.
It was expected that she wouldn't be around a lot, so I grew up very independent because of that. So no, I guess it wasn't that difficult, although she might say otherwise, because she actually lived it. From my perspective, it was seamless.
Balancing career and family is always difficult. The time apart from Stephen took its toll.
When you have a relationship, you want time, and sometimes the time wasn't there.
Vincent's father was the love of my life, but like everybody else, he betrayed. So what's new.
After 10 years together, the couple divorced, leaving Maria to reinvent herself once more, this time in the role of working single parent.
That made a big impact in my life. I was not interested in anything, really. But, my son helped me to give me strength to go on.
Shortly after the divorce, Maria connected with Derek Bampton, who provided emotional support, as well as being one of Canada's leading vocal coaches.
Well, I've known very few people as motivated as her. That is really her life. Her singing is her life. I've told her a few times, Maria, you must start cultivating some outside interests. Because, the day comes with it to everybody, when the career is no longer what it had been. And, but it's her passion.
Under Bampton's direction, Maria's career blossomed with performances around the world. The wounds from her second divorce had barely healed when Maria began seeing an Ottawa-based businessman. After a year, he proposed.
Well, I was remained alone with Vincent. He was about 8. And I said, I wanted to give him a great stepfather to Vincent. I didn't want him to grow up without the image of the father.
Maria, eager to give her son a more traditional family life, accepted the marriage proposal and moved back to Ottawa. But for a third time, Maria was unlucky in affairs of the heart.
I was sort of one-ended on it. I wanted him to leave, and that was my point of view from the start.
I thought they would become friends and they would love each other, but they never really happened.
It didn't really get bad for the two of them until several years later, where the good job that he had was gone, and there's just simply wasn't enough money coming in, and Mom was basically the breadwinner. And although she did that very well, she had an expectation that wasn't being fulfilled. So in the end, it was resentment that I think killed that relationship.
Well, for a good year, it was pretty tough, Slowly, you heal, but the pain is always there, it's hard.
Once again, Maria found strength through performing. The newly formed Opera Lyra in Ottawa was delighted to have a singer of Maria's caliber.
The way the younger chorus members in Ottawa just ate up what she was doing, and she was so open to them and asking questions, and they all asked, could I have a lesson with you? And before she knew it, she had a whole following, and I think that helped prompt her move back to Ottawa, because she said, I could have a community here, and I could be of some service to the community. There were no real voice teachers around in Ottawa at the time, and the minute she moved in, she had the studio was full.
The word was out. Maria became a hot commodity as a vocal coach, first as a private instructor and then at McGill University in Montreal, something she has come to love as much as performing.
Take your time together. And she acts it, and you just watch her, and she'll give you a little nudge in one direction, and you just kind of go with it. And if she doesn't like it, she'll tell you.
Actually, close, you are like that. No.
She always loves it. She loves the music. She loves the work. So, and you'll do the same aria 3 different ways with her because she has so many ideas.
But when you get up, you almost don't want to let her go.
She has tremendous respect for the students and their talents. She's encouraging, she's positive.
It's interesting to watch her because if someone needs to be down on the floor, Maria gets down on the floor to show them what they should do. And there was a funny incident last year. One of the girls said, well, how am I going to be able to sing if you have me lying on a bench? And so Maria laid out on the bench and sang. She said, like that.
They're so nice. Some of them so talented. And they drink everything I tell them, soon I tell them, they do it. And I show them, and then I show what they did, and sometimes they laugh, But they're really, really beautiful people, I'm very happy there.
This woman who's so unassuming and humble, yet she's had a fabulous career. She's been compared to Callas, and she's sang, with Pavarotti. And she doesn't have to do this, yet she loves it so much. And it's such an honor to be able to study with somebody who's had such a world-class career.
After 5 decades on stage, the offers to play many of the classic leading roles have dwindled.
In Canada, they have this fixation about age. If you age, because age. In Italy, in Europe, they don't care. You look good, you can sing the part, you sing. Here, they have people that they have stuck on the age. If you pass 45, you're too old to sing opera, and that's stupidity.
She chose to make a commitment to Canada to help promote opera in Canada. I think that she was not as appreciated by the establishment.
One might question whether or not Maria alienated herself from certain companies and casting directors by being a prima donna.
I think that with people who are genuine artists and who are so concentrated on making their art, it's forgivable.
You have to say right away, the moment you meet her, that you realize that this is a diva with the good and the questionable characteristics that word implies.
Diva, somebody that is temperamental, I think, that didn't get along with the colleagues, and that's what I think the diva. I don't like to be diva. I'm not diva.
Gary Remigio, one of Maria's vocal students, is also one of her biggest supporters. He is perplexed at how such a great talent is not working more regularly.
She has every quality that a star should have. And it's just it wasn't pushed in the right directions, I don't think.
In fact, Gary set up a booking agency to tap into Maria's network of contacts in the opera world. His mandate? To show the world that Maria Pellegrini still has it. Maria Callas stopped singing at 40. Rosa Poncel sounded like a girl at 65. Maria is well into her 50s, and her voice is still exceptional.
Maria never strained. She also never sang roles which were not for her. She had the intelligence for that. Some of the intellectuals don't. They were after her to do Tosca. And I said to her, well, why not? She said, no, that's not for me. It's too heavy. I said, well, you do Butterfly. That's totally different.
There's no wobble in her voice, which is something that usually develops after long periods of singing and at a certain point in your career, and no traces.
Maria Pellegrini, the greatest butterfly alive, has undergone a metamorphosis once again, returning to the role she played as a child in Pescara, Italy, staging her own production of Don Giovanni, starring her son Vincent, passing on energy and knowledge shaped by the life she has lived and the decisions she has made.
Oh, che caro galantuomo, vuoi star dentro col
In a career that has spanned 5 decades, Maria Pellegrini's life has often imitated her art. She has lived the intense passion, pleasure, and pain of the many tragic heroines she has portrayed on stages around the world. Yet, unlike the roles she has played, Maria Pellegrini has evolved as mistress of her fate, a survivor, a down-to-earth diva with the voice of an angel.
When you have a voice like I have, the voice that I have, that I say, it's not only a trained voice, but it's a voice from God, and it's very hard to lose it. Even if you want, you can't lose it because it's there, engraved by God, and that's the way it is.